This is episode 9, The Abandoned Years. The Ruin Learns to Speak. Welcome to Ancient Secrets and Haunted Journeys. I'm Jessica, and today we're covering the part of Eastern State's story that most haunted prison clips skip. What happens after the prison closes. Because after Eastern State shut down in 1971, the building didn't instantly become a museum. It became something more dangerous to history. It became available to weather, gravity, rust, vandals, and the slow administrative fog that settles over unused public buildings. And for years, the question wasn't, how do we interpret this place? The question was, do we even keep it? Today, we're tracking this era in a clean timeline. 1971, closure and transfer, followed by abandonment. The next 2 decades, proposals, neglect, and decay. 1988, a halt to redevelopment and a pivot toward preservation. 1994, hard hat tours begin, and the public returns to the ruins. This episode is about the second life of Eastern State, when the prison stopped being a machine and started becoming a monument. The post-closure gap, why abandonment matters. Eastern State was designed to function through daily routine. It needed maintenance, staffing, repairs, and constant oversight. When that disappears, the building changes fast. After the prison's closure, the site sat empty and neglected for years. And that's not just an atmospheric detail, it's a structural truth. Water intrusion becomes normal. Freeze-thaw cycles widen cracks. Roof failures accelerate interior collapse. Metal corrodes. Wood rots. Paint peels. Mold grows in the places people used to breathe. Abandonment also creates a psychological shift. When a prison is operating, it has authority. It has rules. When it becomes a ruin, it becomes a canvas. People project onto it. Fear, fascination, guilt, nostalgia, thrill. That projection is one of the engines of modern haunted storytelling. But historically, the bigger issue is simpler. If a place like Eastern State is left to decay, society can quietly erase the evidence of what incarceration looked like. And that's why the abandoned era is not a footnote. It's the hinge between prison and public memory, a place that was still important, even while empty. Here's a fact that complicates the abandonment story. Eastern State was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1965, while it was still functioning as a prison. That designation means people already recognized its significance before it ever became ruins content. So after 1971, Eastern State wasn't just an empty building, it was an empty landmark. And landmarks create conflict. Developers see potential. Preservationists see responsibility. Politicians see cost. The public often sees nothing at all because the walls hide the inside. During the abandoned era, multiple reuse ideas floated around. Some proposals described redevelopment options like a mall or luxury apartments surrounded by the existing walls. Whether you love or hate those ideas, they reveal the same underlying truth. The city and state had to decide what to do with a massive, expensive structure that carried heavy meaning. And for years, there was no final answer. 1988, the moment the site was saved. Now we lock into a documented turning point. Eastern State's official history notes that after standing empty and at risk of demolition, a task force of architects, preservationists, and historians urged Philadelphia Mayor Wilson Goode to halt the process of selling the site in 1988. That matters because it marks the moment Eastern State pivots from at risk to actively protected. This group is often referred to as the Eastern State Penitentiary Task Force, and their goal was not to restore the prison into a polished museum overnight. It was to stabilize it. Stabilize means keep the ruin from collapsing, make it safe enough for people to enter, and preserve it in a way that keeps the scars visible. That is a big philosophical decision. Many historic sites are restored to a specific period. Fresh paint, clean rooms, recreated furniture. Eastern State chose another path, preserve the ruin, and that choice is why the place looks the way it does today, a controlled decay, where the damage is part of the interpretation instead of something hidden behind drywall. 1994. Hard hat tours, and the public returns. This is the next major milestone. Eastern State's official history states that in 1994, the site opened for historic tours on a daily basis, and visitors were required to wear hard hats and sign liability waivers. That detail tells you how raw the place still was, not restored, not finished, safe enough to enter, but still visibly unstable. And in that first year of hard hat tours, the site welcomed about 10,000 visitors. That number matters because it proves the public appetite for this place wasn't just about ghosts. It was about architecture, history, and the strange pull of standing inside a structure built to control people through silence. Hard hat tours also changed the relationship between the public and the prison. When Eastern State was active, it hid its reality behind walls. When Eastern State became a historic site, it invited people inside those walls. And that invitation forces a question that never fully goes away. What does it mean to tour a place where thousands suffered? The ethics of preserving a prison as a ruin. This is where we slow down and name the stakes. Preserving Eastern State isn't morally neutral. If you sanitize the site, you risk turning it into pure aesthetics, pretty stone, dramatic light, and no consequence. If you lean only into haunting and entertainment, you risk turning human suffering into a prop. If you do nothing, you risk losing the structure and the evidence. So the stabilized ruin approach becomes an ethical compromise. Keep it standing, keep it honest, use it to teach. And that's aligned with what Eastern State says its modern mission is. Using the site to illuminate the history of incarceration and connect it to criminal justice issues today. So, when you hear people call this place haunted, remember, even without a single ghost story, the site is already heavy. Not because it's spooky, because it's true. A ruin doesn't only show what happened, it shows what a society is willing to remember. Evidence room, fact tiers for this episode verified. Eastern State closed in 1971 and then stood empty for years. It was a National Historic Landmark by 1965. The site was at risk of demolition until 1988, when Mayor Wilson Goode halted the selling process at the urging of a preservation task force. In 1994, Eastern State opened for daily historic tours, requiring hard hats and liability waivers, welcoming about 10,000 visitors in that first year. Reported and widely described. During the abandoned era, nature reclaimed parts of the site, and multiple redevelopment proposals circulated, reflecting pressure to repurpose the property. Theory, grounded in preservation practice. Eastern State's stabilized ruin approach is not only aesthetic, it's interpretive. The damage teaches, the discomfort teaches, the visibility of decay prevents easy forgetting. Next episode is our finale, Whispers Back. We'll cover what people report experiencing at Eastern State, why those experiences can happen, and how to talk about the paranormal here without turning history into spectacle. Because the most important thing Eastern State does is not scare you. It makes you think about what we build in the name of reform. Thanks for listening to Ancient Secrets and Haunted Journeys. Hosted by Jessica. Written by Jessica and Daniel Fafel. Produced by Jessica Fafel. Research, music, and artwork by Daniel Fafel. For sources and photos, check the show notes. Come back next week for the next episode. And for the full deep dive, the book Eastern State Penitentiary, the Pennsylvania System and the Prison That Changed the World is available now on Amazon.